Welcome to episode 29 of the VYPE podcast. We've got a full crew here this week. Myself, Will Turboff, Ashton Lux, and Ella Estan, all here for what is going to be a great episode. We'll recap some of the biggest news from week 5, and there's a lot of it. We're going to preview some of this week's games, and we have an exclusive interview with spring quarterback Bishop Davenport. Ashton, welcome back.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate having me back, or y'all having me back. Excuse me. I was a little bit under the weather last week and crunched on time with junior year coming in. But I'm glad to be back, and I'm excited to see what this week holds for us.
Well, there is quite a bit, so let's go and jump right into it. There's a guy that's been covered more than maybe almost anyone else in the 2023 class, other than Arch Manning, I would say, and those two are friends. It's El Campo running back Reuben Owens. Reuben has absolutely gone off this season. In last week's game against Bernie Champion, he went for 324 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. He went in on defense, too, and had an interception. I don't know how that happened, but, man, he is just all over the field. So through 5 games, he already has 1,088 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns. That's 12.7 yards per carry. Per carry! That is ridiculous. He still has 6 more regular season games to go, and El Campo will be deep in those 4A playoffs. Ashton, Ella, how many rushing yards is this guy going to end up with?
With Reuben already surpassing the 1,000-yard mark and just under 20 touchdowns in, 4 games? I don't want to sound like a broken record because I'm sure everyone on Twitter and even in person is saying this, but I think the sky's the limits for Reuben, especially just being still a junior, being in 2023 class and having next year. I think having to put a number on what he can and will do this season is going to be challenging because I'm not convinced this will be his best game of the year. I think he can do even better, and that's saying a lot. But to, like I said, to put a number on it, I think regular season-wise, I could see him easily pass 2,000 yards milestone very easily and at least 30 touchdowns, if not more. And I know that's probably record-wise, but 17 touchdowns in 4 games, I think he can do it. And we're all going to enjoy seeing him in the playoffs because playoffs-wise, that's when real defense – not saying that he hasn't played real defenses, but when everybody's best game is out there. And I think Reuben's going to shine in those moments. So – I could see him hitting that 3,000-yard mark overall as the year, but regular season-wise, at least 2,000.
I agree that he's definitely got some more tricks up his sleeve to just continue rushing the way he is. He's able to navigate through the defensive line so well that it's absolutely crazy, especially considering that he's only a junior, and he's putting up some insane numbers, obviously. And I think when you consider with 6 more regular season games, and let's say predicting probably around 3-4 playoff games at least, he's going to put up probably around 2,500 rushing yards, and he's going to surpass 25 touchdowns easily. Probably, I think Ashton, he'll probably hit that 30 mark as well. He's definitely got an all-star season in the books already, and he's just going to keep going from there.
Yeah, I believe the record was set about 10 years ago during Dekaney's run in a state championship, and I think it's just a few yards short of 3,000. So Reuben Owen has 6 more regular season games left to go, and well, like you said, maybe 4 or 5 playoff games. Maybe they end up as one of the last teams in that area. I think we get Reuben Owens at 2,800 yards, maybe a little bit more. He was aiming for 3,000. He told a few people that his goal this year was 3,000 yards. And if you're putting up 325 yards in a game, that doesn't sound too crazy. So we'll see how that turns out. And Ella, to end last week's show, we predicted a few games. I think we're about the same, but this one we weren't. I'll take the loss. Clear Falls and Dickinson. I said that Clear Falls was going to come out and win this game, and it was going to be really close. It was neither one of those things. Dickinson wins 28-7. So Ella, I'll ask you this question. Ashton, feel free to jump in. Did Clear Falls kind of fool people with their great out of district play, or are we going to see them, finish right behind Dickinson or very close to them near the end of the season?
I don't think they fooled anybody necessarily. I just think Dickinson is the toughest opponent they faced so far. And I don't think they were quite ready for the level that the Gators are playing out right now. They played Katy and Ridgepoint, lost to them, and those are two of the best teams right now. And you just have them continue forward from those losses, learning from them and improving. And so, I predicted Dickinson to win that game for that reason, that they had the tougher preseason, but that doesn't mean anything against Clear Falls. They're still a great team. They're still started out very strong. And I think it's definitely going to be a battle between them and Springs for who gets second and third in this district. And I think they've got a really good shot at it, but don't count them out just because they've had one loss. They're still a great team, and they faced a great Dickinson team. So they can't be expected to win every single game against teams that are just at a slightly higher caliber than them at the moment.
To kind of add on what Ellis said, I think any defense that has to face Donovan Green is just in for a treat. We all know what the Texas A&M commit can do. But most importantly, I think Clear Falls is going to do one of two things. They're either going to put this game behind them and focus on getting one of those last few spots for the playoffs, or either sway off the rails and just maybe even miss the playoffs. So, like Ellis said, I don't think it's fooling people. I think it's that Dickinson is just at a higher level than they are at the moment.
Yeah, I think that Dickinson is in that same conversation that we had about the Woodlands last week, where although they don't have the best record, both these teams came in 2-2 going into district play. They played really good teams. Katy and Ridgepoint are their losses. I think it prepared them a lot. And although I think Dickinson will win this district, I think that Clear Falls will be second. Clear Springs will probably be third, and I believe Clearbrook is also in that district. So those will likely be the four. But it could really go either way, even though Dickinson's already won this game. Potentially they could lose two, but I don't see that happening. Stratford, undefeated so far this season. They missed the playoffs after being tied at the 3-4-5 spot. They got the wrong end of the stick, ended up missing the playoffs, and they defeat Cy-Fair last week for the first time in quite a few years. So like I said, they're in a playoff drought. They still have a few opponents left to go. Who do you think in that district is the biggest threat to the Spartans right now?
I think with Stratford and the Cy-Fair game, obviously Cy-Fair losing, I think Cy-Fair is having one of those years as they try to find their new identity after losing various seniors, such as 4-star Texas A&M signee LJ Johnson, 3-star Virginia signee tight end Jack Whitmore, and as well as quarterback Carter Cravens. Despite this, I think Stratford still is going to do well. I think the only team that stands in their way is Jersey Village, and maybe even Side Creek with Brad Jackson.
I agree. I think that Jersey Village is probably their biggest threat right now. You would have thought it would have been Cy-Fair, and I think many would have thought that game would have been closer than it turned out to be. But Cy-Fair is in their kind of rebuilding stage right now. But I think Jersey Village is definitely the top contender with Stratford, and I think Memorial can sneak in there. They're also having a pretty good start. But I think it's right now, Stratford has to get past Jersey Village and Memorial, and they might have this district secured.
Yeah, I really like Jersey Village. I'm glad that both of you brought them up. Adam Tran is their starting quarterback right now, I believe, a dual sport athlete, and he came in last year as a freshman and led them to, I believe, a playoff game or two. So that's a really interesting team to look out for. And then, like you said, Memorial. That Stratford Memorial game is always very high key, but it's going to be even more so this year. And now we go to a game that Ashton was at. Tomball and Tomball Memorial at this brand new 10,000 seat stadium, and the Cougars win. Your boys over there at Tomball, 48-35. Ashton, what'd you see from this game?
Obviously, I'm a Tomball guy now, and I'm going to have to give my hats off to Tomball. They worked hard, and they deserve this game. And from this game, what I saw is the offense's ability to work on the fly. For example, the play I'm sure everyone has seen, which is actually in the running for Play of the Week on VYPE Live, which I shot, so go vote for it. It shows the intelligence of the offense as a unit. The offensive linemen, which consists of almost all D1 commits, continue to block upwards for almost 20 seconds, giving Helms time to roam around in the pocket. And the receivers also found ways to block for other receivers, which allowed Helms to ultimately find Jaden Gray in the end zone, where he jumped over 2 receivers. I also think the other things that they had to look out for, after missing out on the playoffs last year, this team is full of seniors. They were hungry for a winning season and obviously a rivalry game such as Tomball Memorial. I think district-wise, the other big games will be against Klein Oak, who despite being 2-3, have played teams like Spring, Atascocita, and North Shore. And Klein Cain's also up there since Roper and Golden seem to be getting up there underway after the Bridgeland loss in week 1. And so overall, Tomball's just having a really good year. And to build on top of that, their mentality is to make the playoffs, but also something that we will see later on is something that the team is living on right now is the saying, not the same Tomball, obviously, which reflects that they're not the same Tomball from last year. So I'm really excited for the rest of the year.
Ashton, I am just in love with this district. You've got Tomball, you've got Tomball Memorial, and then the Klein teams. So I've already seen Klein Oak this year. I've seen Tomball Memorial, and I've heard about Tomball just about every week from you. So I think we like to talk about that North Shore district a lot. We like to talk about 6A23 with the Pearland teams and Shadow Creek. But this is one that's going to come down to the wire, and there's a good game this coming week that we'll talk about. But there's going to be a few teams that are unfortunately going to get lost in the shuffle because we're looking at quite a few teams that could make it deep in the playoffs if they end up at the 1 or 2 spot and get to face, some favorable opponents in those first few rounds. And then Jalen Gilbo. This was our big story last week. Jalen Gilbo was down to 3 teams the last time we shot. It was Texas A&M, and TCU. He took a visit to TCU while he was committed to Texas a few months ago, and everyone was kind of like, what's going on? That's when you have offers from Alabama and just about every program in the country, no one thinks TCU is going to be a place that you even think to visit. And guess what he does? He commits to play for the Horned Frogs. This is crazy, but it's not the first time it's happened. Although TCU's had some unconventional ads with Zach Evans and Shadrack Banks, coming from situations that, weren't exactly what they had hoped for in that recruitment. They're developing a great team right now, and they've got Matthew Golden, and they've got a few other guys in the 22 class from Texas and all around the country. So, guys, is TCU a team that we'll be looking at in the next couple of years as maybe stars in this reinvigorated Big 12?
I think TCU will continually climb up in the ranks, but a lot of it comes down to relationships between the players and the coaching staff, but also with other commits. I mean, players recruit heavily, and even on Twitter, we see it. Obviously, for example, with Texas A&M, we all see Bobby Taylor on Twitter, always talking to somebody. We see Connor Wigman, Harold Perkins, and all that. But for TCU specifically, I think a lot of it is going to come down to recruiting, and with big players like Zach Evans, Shadrack Banks, and Matthew Golding, and now Jalen. I think a lot, like I said, a lot of it's going to come down to recruiting, and if they can pull that off, eventually they will be climbing up in the ranks, and maybe one day we'll see them big time.
I definitely think TCU is stacking their team right now. You've got strong defensive players, and you've got a great offense coming in, and you're just putting all of these great players from Texas high school football onto one team together. And it's crazy to see how many recruits are actually leaning towards TCU, whether that's necessarily their first choice or not. And I think especially with Evans, Banks, and now Gilbo, and then you throw Golden into the mix, that this is going to be a really good team in a couple of years, especially with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 to head to the SEC. I think TCU could become like a power within the Big 12, putting that out there. And, my individual hope is to actually go to TCU for sports broadcasting. So who knows, I might get to see this team in action in the future and watch them grow and keep up with these guys. And I hope that they turn out to have a great time and this team's going to be really good in a couple of years, and they're definitely not bad right now, and they're definitely going to start building their program back up. And so I think could be a big team in the Big 12 in a couple of years.
Yeah, I wrote an article a couple weeks ago on how this whole Big 12 news was going to change high school football recruiting, and the main team that I talked about was Houston, because they're moving up, and they're going to reap the benefits, maybe more than anyone else to start off with. But TCU is already established. Not too long ago, they were in contention for a national championship. So I think we could be seeing another push here. They've got to beat SMU before they do anything, though. But when you've got Zach Evans, who already looks like he's in, maybe Heisman form, we'll see what he does next year. Shadrach Banks will be hopefully on the field for good starting next year. Jalen Gilbo will be there. He'll be the man on defense. So this is a great team to look out for. And yeah, maybe the three of us will be covering them at some point. And now we have our exclusive interview with spring quarterback Bishop Davenport ahead of his huge game against Westfield this week. Our exclusive interview with spring quarterback Bishop Davenport. Bishop, you're having a great season. You're rocking the S right now. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good after a good day of practice.
Yeah.
Getting ready for Friday.
Good day of practice, starting the week off good. Just a couple of days away from what's going to be a huge game against Westfield. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but I would be remiss not to talk about your recruitment a little bit. You're committed to Utah State. That was officially announced by VYPE just a few months ago. So tell me about Utah State and what was so attractive about that program in the recruitment process.
I just love talking to the Coach Tucker, the offensive coordinator, just how you run his offense and how it fits me and all the other stuff, and then as well as the coaches, how genuine they are, as into where they want me to be in the future. So.
Yeah, and there was one other thing in my first interview with you that you mentioned right when you committed, something about maybe the geographic aspect of Utah State.
Oh yeah, the mountains and the land out there. Yeah, it's a lot to do compared to in Houston with the city.
They've got some success in the last few years with developing NFL talent, especially in the QB level. And, man, you're coming in hot. So that'll be exciting to see what you can do there. But you never really got recruited like a lot of people think you should have. You weren't given any stars. You weren't given a real profile by these huge recruiting sites. Why do you think you've been passed up so much over the last few years?
Really just because it's a lot. Before, I started late. I started my junior year. All the other quarterbacks that's in my class that, got stars and offers, they started their sophomore year. So I feel like that's, kind of a big thing. So I just kind of came to the show late.
Yeah, well, you came in hot. Yeah, you've done it really well, like I've said. You had a great year last year. You're having a great year this year. And you're friends with a lot of these guys in the area. You have a good relationship with Gavin Session over there in Atascocita.
I've been knowing him since.
His dad was talking to me about that. So tell our viewers what your relationship with Gavin is.
Man, me and Gavin are like brothers, bro. We've been knowing each other since single-digit age, Little League, select football. We won a couple championships together in Little League and stuff like that. So we just. And I see his dad every other day because he cut my hair. So and then his dad and my dad are close. So it's just it's just all the family.
So back in the day when you guys were out there, who was playing quarterback?
It was kind of I was at quarterback. He was at running back actually, but we kind of did wildcats. So it was we was both in the backfield catching snaps and running and stuff like that. So.
Well, it was mostly me. That's a lot of talent on a Little League team, and I would have been scared to face you about 10 years ago. You said, Bishop, Gavin is like your brother, but you actually have a brother, and you played with him last year. He went through the spring program. What was that like to be able to play with him and get him on your team?
It was great. Just knowing that it was his senior year and he about to leave, and just being able to have fun as much as I can on the field with him. It was fun.
Yeah, that's great. You don't get a lot of opportunities like that, and of course, being at age difference not that much, so that's a really great story. But let's get into this season. Your QBR is somehow through the roof, even higher than it was last year. In 4 games, you've thrown 17 touchdowns. What's the key this season been so far?
Shoot, my O-line and my receivers. Just every day at practice grinding, just helping me out, making my job easier. And, just me just capitalizing on it.
Yeah, I saw you had a great 7-on-7 team. You've got a lot of good receivers. Obviously, didn't see the offensive line there, but you knew you were going to have a great year. Did you have any statistical goals coming into the season, or was it just kind of like, I'm going to go out there and do what I want to do?
Yeah, I got goals, but they don't have nothing to do with stats, really. Like my goal is to go as far as we can, like all 16 games, and just stats come with it. So basically, just going out there and doing me. And
Stats are
happy, yeah.
Stats are sure coming with it this year.
Yeah.
And now you're coming up on what is probably the biggest game of the season, maybe the biggest game of your career so far, if it's not the one last year against Westfield. So you're playing Cardell, you're playing AJ Holmes, you're playing some of the biggest stars in the area. You go to school 10 minutes away from them. I'm sure you know a lot of these guys. But let's take it back to last year when you guys beat them on a Hail Mary. What do you remember about the game, and what do you remember about the team?
I remember about the game, like we came out, like we was just going to finish them off. But then, they made some adjustments at halftime, and things went left. Then I had to finish off with a bang because I didn't want to lose because how the history between us. But so, yeah, that's really how that went. So we kind of came out hard, and they kind of finished us throughout third and fourth, and then we just finished it off. And so it was a good game.
Yeah,
Friday, though.
A pretty great game. We called it one of the best of the year last year, and I'm sure it's not going to disappoint this year. So like I said, about 4 miles away, you see these guys all the time. How do you think that helps you, and it may go the other side too, because you've seen a lot of these guys for years, maybe even play some Little League with them.
Yeah, I play Little League with AJ, number 10. Then I play Little League with 8 and 30. So, yeah, we all know each other. It just kind of helped me because I know tendencies. Like, I know what they thinking and how they play. So.
Yeah, well, if there's one thing that the spring team has over Westfield and has over every team in the state right now, what do you think that is? What makes this spring Lions team so special?
Chemistry and our brotherhood. I feel like that's what makes us better than everybody else.
Well, keep balling out, man. Keep embarrassing teams like you told me a few weeks ago. Good luck. We're going to do our picks in just a second, and I'm
right.
picking you guys. So I'll talk to you soon, man. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
We may not always be the most successful, but we like to finish the week off with some picks. So let's go ahead and start this off. This is a game that we referenced earlier on in the episode, Tomball Memorial and Klein Kane. Ashton, I'll start off with you.
I think with Tomball Memorial coming off a rivalry game loss, they're going to either do one of two things, and they're going to come into this game with something to prove after their loss, or they're going to continue on this path of losing, which I don't think is probable later on in the season. But for this game specifically, I'm going to have to take Klein Kane with Roper and Matthew Golding, because I think the power between those two is going to be too much for Memorial's defense to handle.
Me too, Ashton. I think I'm going to take Klein Kane for this one. Especially with Tomball Memorial, they're 2-3 right now. It's not the best start. And I think that can be a little bit of a hit to the confidence. And by no means are they a bad team, but they've got to recover quickly from that Tomball loss. And I don't know if you can recover very quickly from a big rivalry game loss. And Klein Kane, their only loss so far is to Bridgeland, who is obviously a great team. And that just puts Klein Kane up there with them getting to play against Wigman and his complex offense. They've got a good loss under their belt that's led them to win the rest of their games. And so I think looking at it right now, Klein Kane should win this game against Tomball Memorial. Especially with Golden, they've got a great offense and they've got their own weapons, and I think they'll be able to take Tomball Memorial down.
Yeah, I think we're unanimous on this one. Although Klein Kane hasn't faced the best teams since that loss to Bridgeland, they've looked really good, and they're putting up, upwards of 40 points in every single game. They put up 63 against Katy Taylor a couple weeks ago. I think Klein Kane is going to win this game, but I think Tomball Memorial is right there, maybe at the 4 spot in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to take that much of a hit after what was a great year last year. Now heading to Summer Creek and CE King.
Both teams coming to this game undefeated. Obviously, CE King 5-0 and Summer Creek 4-0 coming to this one off a bye week. I think this is going to be a great matchup to open district play for the both of them. It shows us very early on who's going to get knocked out of the playoffs because this district is stacked. So for me, I'm going to have to take CE King on this one and not Summer Creek.
I think we talked about it last week, Will, about this big district and who we thought was going to end up where. And we both said that CE King is right in there in the 3 or 4 spot, and Summer Creek, for neither of us, was in those top playoff spots. And so based on that and based on Summer Creek's preseason schedule, which was fairly easy compared to the rest of the teams in their district, I think even though you have the incredible Calvin Banks, you're not going to win this game against CE King based on just that one player. They've got good weapons and they've got a good team chemistry, but CE King is just, I think, a better team all around. And so I'm going to take CE King for this one.
Well, I hate to say it, but we are unanimous again. I'm taking CE King in this one. I really like them. We talked about that last week, like you said. Summer Creek and the Summer Creek versus Westbrook is the game to look out for in that district. Because whoever wins that game is the 4 spot, very likely. But if CE King can use this game to get some more momentum, watch out for them against Atascocita and North Shore. How about Katy and Tompkins? This was a game last year that so many people were paying attention to. It was Jalen Milroe's claim to fame, if he already didn't have it. They come in, they beat Katy for the first district loss in 13 years. But who's going to win the game this year?
I think we all know with Jalen Milroe gone, and congratulations to him. Obviously, he threw his first touchdown of his career at Alabama. It's going to be a little tough for Tompkins to adjust. I think with Cole Francis leading the charge right now to a 5-0 season, we all know what they can and will do. But with Katy right now, and especially with Koger and his momentum alongside, I think it's going to be Katy because at an early start into the game, they're going to take over, in my opinion.
I don't think we're going to have a big repeat from last year. I think it could potentially be a close game, maybe within 1 or 2 touchdowns. But I think Katy, they're 5-0 right now. They're on a high. They've got Seth Davis on the offense, and they're just taking everybody by storm right now. No one stands a chance at the moment. So I don't think Tompkins is going to be able to pull this off. But trust me, it would be cool if they did, because they're the one team. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Tompkins. But I think right now the way it's looking out is Katy is going to win this game. They're going to win their district, and they're going to head into playoffs undefeated. Yeah,
there are only a few teams that I would really write off as being undefeated. And, I mean, we even saw in the Bridgeland game last week that Tanner Murray and Langham Creek were giving them a fight early on in that game. So I don't think there's too many dominant teams in the area, but Katy is one of them. They'll win this game, and yeah, they will go undefeated, and it'll be a long time before they lose. And now we come out with the big one, the Lee Corso mascot head-esque game. Spring and Westfield. We already talked to Bishop Davenport. So let's go ahead and get picks from you guys on this one.
So early on in the year, when we did one of the first podcasts, I thought spring was good, but no way, shape, or form was I on the bandwagon like Will was. And Will, hats off to you because you've called this and you've stuck by it, and they are completing what you said. Obviously, Westfield beating North Shore just 2 weeks ago and still winning. I think Westfield is doing well and will do well. But with the momentum that Davenport and Spring have, I'm going to have to take Spring on this one.
You know, I hate to say it and go against the two of y'all, but I think I'm going to go with Westfield on this one. They beat North Shore, which doesn't happen very often. And, you know, Spring is also one of those top tier teams right now, but Westfield is right there with them. Westfield has the potential to just head straight into the playoffs. They might be, if they can get past this game, there's a good potential they could be another one of the undefeated teams going into the playoffs. But they have to get past this game, and I think Bishop Davenport and Spring, they are going to give them a run for their money, and it's going to be an exciting game. But I think in the end, you're going to see Westfield come out victorious. Sorry, Will.
Hey, who said I was taking Spring? So I'm so upset that I can't go to this game. Last year, it was maybe the best regular season game. Ended on a Hail Mary, like we said. And this one is going to be just as good, if not better. It's going to be high scoring, although those defenses are great. And it's going to come down to the wire. But our boy, Bishop Davenport, will lead Spring to a victory. He'll lead them to an undefeated season and to lead them to a state championship. And that's how we'll end the episodes. We want to thank Bishop for coming on. For Ashton Lux, for LHS 10, I'm Will Turboff. We will see you next week for episode number 30 of the VYPEU podcast. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.